Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today, relationship life coach Cindy Chavez. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And today we are talking about a topic that is actually very apropos for what's going on around here. Because I've been putting off for quite some time creating the new introduction with Jackie in it. And, you know, it's about time I did it. So I made this nice big sign. I put it up in front of my monitor so I can't miss it. So this is going to be like my first step toward trying to make sure that I remove that little piece of procrastination from my life. So I just want to say, I want to try to get the show off to a good start by making that promise. Now, can I keep it? We'll have to see.
Excellent.
You ladies were talking about this between the two of you, and then Cindy, you sent me a note about the idea, and it's a great topic. It's one we have done it in the past, but I'm going to say 2 or 3 years ago, so we've been putting off doing it again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a good one. And I think it's one that we all face in one form or another. I've had plenty of opportunities to face it this spring, this summer, in the gardening business, because there's lots of opportunities to do it. We'll just put that off. I got this thing over here I have to do. So this is apropos. I'm glad we're doing this one. But what brought up in your conversation? What made you think that it was such a good one to talk about today?
Well, I will tell you that Jackie is getting ready to do this program about finishing things, like getting things done.
Ah.
And I thought it would be a great idea to talk about it and get people to go see about joining it, but it's sold out before we talk about it.
Well, some people didn't procrastinate. That's a good thing.
No, they didn't. So Jackie and I were talking about it over the last few days and celebrating that it sold out and being excited about it. And we were just talking about it, and I thought, you know what? Let's just talk about this on the show, because it's, we can't, the program doesn't have any spots left, but we can still talk about all the cool things we've been talking about together about why it happens, like why we procrastinate and what we can do about it and how it affects our ability to manifest, which is really the big thing.
That's the key part. Yes.
Yeah. And then the thing that always comes up in my mind is something I read several years ago. Can't remember where I read it. I think it was actually just a magazine article. But it really stuck with me, because I prefer not to get much older, but stay around the same age that I am now. And the stat said that procrastination ages you faster than being sedentary, faster than smoking, faster than drinking, faster than junk food, faster than anything they could name that they, not drinking enough water. They said the top of the list for things that ages you is procrastination. And, I'm shocked that I still procrastinate about anything, but I still do.
Did they say why? That's so fascinating.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just remember it felt like somebody, threw a glass of cold water in my face. Like, oh my gosh, because, I think I procrastinate probably as much as anyone else. But,
well, I do know that while you were reading that list, when you read that list, I actually was reaching for the water, because I thought, okay, no time like the present, right?
Absolutely. Me too. Cheers.
It's sort of like dreading, like the things I've been procrastinating on aren't things I dread, and that's even weirder, right?
Yes,
when you're dreading doing something and you realize, and this is always my realization, I dreaded cleaning out this one cupboard that was just a mess. And every time I had to get something out of it, I would oh God, it's such a mess. I need to organize this, but I didn't for literally, I'm embarrassed to say, for 2 years. It's just, I always opened the cupboard, got what I needed. This thing is a mess. And then one day I'd had enough, right? Have you suffered enough? And I organized it. It took me 20 minutes. And I was so I've been dreading something for 2 years that I could have done in 20 minutes. And I felt so good about it once it was done. And it's those things I try to remember the energy shift once it's finished. And it's often not even something that's going to take very much time.
No, and invariably it takes less time than the time you've already invested in avoiding it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's to say, it is that, and that catches everybody by surprise. the group for my program has already started, and people are going, I found that I just like picked up that piece of paper that I noticed and put it away or put it there. I just did this thing and it's 2 seconds, but I've been walking past it for a week. Yeah. And it's just, but I'm sure there are studies as to why we do this, but I'm less interested in why than I am in let's not do it anymore. Let's enjoy because, you can have the studies and people love doing the nerdy thing about working out why we do this. And it can be useful if it helps you stop doing it. But if it doesn't, then it's just purely academic. Like Cindy said, she got told that she's going to age 400 times faster if she procrastinates, and she still procrastinates. So that piece of information really wasn't that useful, so to speak. Right? And so, it's just there's a thing that's underneath procrastination that I do think is worth exploring, and that is knowing intuitive timing. Intuitive timing will have you holding off on something. And it'll look like procrastination. And then in a week or so, something will happen and you'll think, I'm so glad I didn't rush to do this, right?
Yep.
And I do think that since the Industrial Revolution, where people's rhythms, natural rhythms, seasonal rhythms got obscured and in some places, sometimes and situations obliterated because we needed to show up from 9 until 5, right? We needed the factory punch in, punch out. They needed people to be controlled and rhythmic to this thing of creating the industry, supporting the industry. So things like being able to retire when a woman is in her menstrual cycle, well, that disappeared. Being able to just sort of, if an artist is in the flow of something, letting them stay creating. No, you have to go to your job. You have to do this. Sleep rhythms, all this kind of thing. That all got adjusted. So procrastination can sometimes be just your own natural rhythm screaming for attention. So, and I think the most important thing is that we don't label procrastination as one of the 7 deadly sins, because it's not.
Right.
Unless, and I put this caveat, it's not unless we allow it to lower our joyful experience of life. So, for example, I'm talking about laundry. Laundry is always something people procrastinate on for some reason, I don't, but
not me.
I don't have enough clothes to procrastinate on laundry, but there is, when you downsize as far as I have, it's like, you have to do laundry. When you have, I got 8 pairs of undies, so every 7 days we got to do laundry. But there's this thing where they'll do the washing and the drying, and then the pile stays at the end of the bed or something, right? So that's the piece of procrastination. Here's the thing, though. If it doesn't interfere with the way you live your life, it's not procrastination. You're just not bothering, and that's fine. You can totally not bother. However, if every time you see that laundry pile, you go, I hate that laundry pile. I can't stand, like Cindy's covered, right? It sucks another piece of your joy, or it holds I always talk about it holds a piece of your attention hostage. It grabs a little fragment of the attention you have available and it holds it hostage. And then, because our brains can be decidedly unkind a lot of the time,
that's a polite way of saying it.
We'll add on things, heavy duty critiques about why that laundry is still there. And your brain never offers you anything substantial and useful that's like, well, you've been madly busy, or you happen to have a newborn, or in one of my friends, you actually broke your leg. So, standing to fold laundry is not going to happen. It's like, no, your brain doesn't offer those pieces. Instead, it goes, you're so bad at this. Wow. It's like, you suck at life. You've always procrastinated. You put off homework at school, and this is just the grown-up version of it. Right? So not only do we now have the incomplete cycle holding our attention hostage, now we've got our brain layering all this crap on top of it as well. So it gets to feel really hard. And my focus, when I went on my completions binge, it was to get rid of that. It was to get rid of the things that prompted my brain to be unkind. It's just like I was done having all this noise in my environment. And it started so easily. I just puttered about my house, putting things away, finishing stuff, ridiculous things like, those stickers that the nonprofits send you with your address on them, right? I decided to keep a batch. I was going to send them a check 3 months ago. So I now, and it's been sitting on my whole table for 3 months. How long did it take me to write a check or write my card things and just put it? It's like 2 seconds. Anyway, so those funny little things. And what I noticed is the more I did, the better I felt. The more I finished things, the more I reclaimed that energy, and I had that energy to direct to things that felt more joyful. And also gave me a chance to shut my brain up for a minute about my quality of house care, right? So it was so tangible, especially when I walked into the lounge the next morning and a whole little cluster of incompletions that had been sitting on my TV table were gone. And was like, wow. Yay, look at that.
Yeah.
And, it's just like, oh my Lord, I am like master of the universe over here. And you get so much more back from that little investment of time, but it feels like that, but actually that's all the energy you've been investing in in deciding to let it go for
another. It's an energy drain.
It is.
And you get that energy back once it's not draining your energy.
Absolutely. And then not only that, but you also, you get back the energy that you've been putting into it because every time you decide not to do it, it's still a decision. Deciding not to is as much a decision as deciding to. And so when you put off, you put another decision on. And eventually it just gets like, no, stop. And so the joy of completing things is a reclamation of your energy. And that's what boosts mood. That's what starts feeling so good. So what I find fascinating about procrastination is how we often do it on things that would feel good to finish. But we just don't.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird? It's the weirdest
feel good to do.
Well, that is true. We got a lot.
Okay, so these earrings that I made finally when Jackie made this program that said, let's finish some things. They've been sitting on my jewelry making table for and I walk by it every day and I see all my tools and the ways to create something. I have like 5 projects of things that I just am not doing. And it didn't take that long and it felt so good to do it. I'm like, I'm not avoiding like crappy, terrible job things I don't want to do, right? It's like I'm procrastinating about things that would be fun to do. So what's going on there?
It's a fascinating thing. And I mean, some of the people in my program, they want to get their taxes done. Another one wants to, finish painting a wall that she ran out of paint with. I did that. I spent a year with a half purple wall. It's like, and it was in the bathroom too, in the little side toilet in my bathroom. So every time I went to pee, I would see this damn wall and I'd go, I wrote a whole blog post on it because
that's a little energy drain.
I know, right?
It's like, and it's nothing big enough that's like a big catastrophe that's really
that's the thing,
wiping you out. It's just like siphoning the little energy off the top.
It is, and it sucks the joy out of life in just little sips, and you can reclaim it. And so part of my I like to give people new eyes new eyes to look at their homes through. And it's just that this thing of finishing stuff, it becomes a habit. It becomes as much a habit as procrastination used to.
Yes. That's the big payoff as far as
that is the biggest payoff, because you get really jazzed at how good it feels to finish stuff. And, part of one of my things with, I noticed earlier in the year, I ended up with like a lot of stuff on my to-do list every day, and I was ending up not doing a lot of it. So one week I decided I wasn't going to write anything on my to-do list for the day except the one thing that had to be done. So I wrote that and I ticked it off and I was thrilled. And the next day I wrote 2 things. And when I worked out that when I got to about 3 or 4 things, that was the maximum.
Okay.
And so now I make a weekly list and I only choose those things because it's not worth the wince at the beginning of every morning to see all the stuff I didn't do from the day before.
That's amazing. That's such a good, simple hack.
Yeah, it's energy management, and focus management, because your brain will focus on all the stuff you didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to focus on ourselves and believe in ourselves as people who can finish things.
I can think of an example that actually has financial implications. And I say that because I went through it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I told you guys in May, we got out of debt for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the key things that I did during the last 12 to 18 months was something that I think actually, Cindy, you and I talked about on a show many, many moons ago. And that is, anytime I had a bill come in, I paid it instantly. I didn't let it sit around. And that makes a huge difference. It's a difference that doesn't seem like a whole lot if you haven't been doing it. But once you switch over, you realize, oh my goodness, it was really sucking the energy out of me.
Yeah.
And not only was it sucking the energy out of me, it was sucking the belief out of me that I could actually get out of debt.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
That is huge. That is huge.
And I have detailed here on the show before. I actually calculated where the money ended up coming from that paid down all the debt and paid it off. And it was about 20% I couldn't account for the longest time. I finally realized it was the stuff that I wasn't buying anymore to cover up mistakes or to deal with stuff that I wasn't feeling good or whatever. There was like this 20% surcharge that I was dealing with every single year to cover all the lousy feeling I had about what I was doing, paying off debt, and other things that were going on in my life that I didn't like. And just changing that one pattern helped to affect that 20%. It didn't cover the whole 20%, but it was certainly part of it.
Wow.
I've been thinking about that a lot. What are the things that are energy drains? And some of them are easy to identify because, you have this chore or that task that you're not crazy about, but that's like one of those energy drains that you don't even realize it's there until you've taken care of it. And then it's like, oh my God. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really a cool practice. It also means that you're tapping into your money all the time.
Right.
You got to make sure that there's enough in the bank to cover that bill when you send it through. And money as an energy likes to have you talk to it.
Because otherwise you're pushing it away. Like, I don't want to, I've done that forever, right? It's like, I don't want to deal with this right now.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to deal with it. And if money was a person, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah.
We talk about our relationship with others, our relationship with ourselves, Jackie talks a lot about our relationship with our home, and our belongings. And there's our relationship with money. And if we're constantly having like, I don't want to deal with that right now, and think about a person in your life that you were just consistently like not answering their calls, not answering their emails, hiding and being really quiet if they came to the door. Like, I don't want to deal with this person. And so that person would eventually get the message that you didn't want anything to do with them, and then they'd stop hanging around. And I think about this all the time. It's like, I don't want money to stop hanging around. I want money to come over and see me a lot, right?
Stay, bring their friends. Yes.
Bring their friends.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So that's a good point, because that's, I think about the way I usually pay bills. I usually pay bills, hopefully on the 1st, but we have a joke around here. What's the date? It's the 5th, right? When it's actually like the 20th. It's like, it's the 5th, right? But, I hadn't thought about it in that frame of like, if you pay things as soon as they come in, instead of saying, well, I sit down on the 1st and I pay everything. But some things might have come in before that and been waiting. If you're paying them right away, then you're dealing with money much more frequently. So,
well, funny thing has happened since I started this new project of paying the bills quickly. I've gotten to the point now where I'm almost looking for the bill to come in the mail. I'm not kidding. Seriously. It's like, did it come? Oh, good. I gotta pay it. Quick.
It's awesome.
It's an entirely different vibe from what I used to live with. Before it was like,
well, it's like, Louise, did the mail carrier bring the bills yet?
Yeah, right.
What's cool is that, Walt, you started doing this before you got out of debt.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's really, really telling, because it's so easy for somebody who has a lot of debt to say, oh, yeah, I'll do that when I'm debt free, obviously, because it's going to be so easy, right? But
which is a great way to go into debt, by the way. I just want to mention.
Yes, absolutely. But it's so smart. It really is. I'm gonna tell people about your story too. It's really smart, and it's I do mine. Because I'm weird like this. I do mine on Thursdays because Thursday is Jupiter hour, in Australia. Well, Thursday, Jupiter's day in astrology. And around about 2:00 in the afternoon, between 2 and 2:30 is Jupiter hour. And that's just, it's luck. It's astrology. It's the way they used to do the calendar. It's called Chaldean calendar. And so I have chosen what I consider, and again, this is just my thought, I consider a magical, abundant hour, to do my money. And so so now that I have this bookkeeping hour, and it's in my calendar as a recurring calendar, and I've chosen the time to be significant, and it's not a Friday, because I really wanted out of the retail mindset thing. I wanted to find a day that felt good and wasn't a Friday. And so I chose this. And since I've been having that, what I've noticed is that I'm never late for a payment. I know when people, people pay me on time as well, because I'll say, here's your bill was due, and so I don't miss those. And it just feels like a date with my money. And so that's also been, I'm all about adding significance to what can feel like a chore. So that you can add some magic into the mundane. And then what happens is it becomes magical. It becomes fun.
Right.
I'm fascinated. It's Thursday.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, the reason I'm really interested that it's Thursday that you pick, because that's the day we pay our employees and when we pay ourselves too.
Yeah.
So Thursday is actually, I didn't have any association with the astrology, but Thursday's become the day that all of my credit cards go back to zero.
Oh,
that's really excited.
I would approve.
That's perfect, right?
It is absolutely perfect. Yeah. And so it's just like a little thing, because a lot of the time it's like housework being used as punishment when we have to do our chores. So that means that we don't enjoy looking after our house when we grow up. It's the same thing with money. When we've had scarcity times and when things, we've had to really wrangle every dollar, to shift that vibration, to shift that attitude and the emotion we bring to it, we can choose a different significance. We can choose a different experience. We can choose what we want to experience. So if you want to have a date with your money, like I know Cindy worked with Morgana Ray for a long time. She talks about her money honey. She talks about him being this lover, and she dates him, and he treats her well. And so it's just, you can buy into that or not, or you can choose your own significance for anything. And Walt, your significance of seeing those zeros, that's what you're invested in. That's what gives you the juice. and what do you get juice from? So it's, it's just,
well, it's a lift every time. I mean, seriously, every time I see it go back to zero, it's like, yes, got there again. Oh, I love this.
It's brilliant. It's really, really cool. And, I to sound like a total housewife nerd, I get that every time I see my floors. The fact that all my floors are done at the same time. I remember when I had knee-high kids and 2 large dogs, my floors were never clean except between midnight and 3 a.m. Seriously, they just never were clean. And I remember my mom saying, I cleaned the kitchen. And I'm going, yeah. And she says, no, but you don't understand. The house is never clean all at the same time. So I have to focus on the fact that just this one little portion of the house is clean. It's okay. We got this. And so now I look at it and I go, floors are clean. Thank you. Did it. And it's a completion, right? It's so good.
Yeah.
So you can apply it to anything. And I think what happens is when we don't celebrate these little benchmarks, then we forget that every goal has these little pieces in them, right? So like Walt, the first card that you got down to 0, the first time you managed to pay your debt, your bill the minute it came in,
right.
The first time you finished something with ease, somebody sent me a message and she said, I started the dishwasher straight after dinner. And it was a big deal for her because she's a family of 5. She got everybody to load the stuff in the dishwasher. She started it and cleared the counter, started the dishwasher and went to sit down. She said, I sat in my TV chair and grinned listening to the dishwasher because normally what would happen is she would plonk herself on the TV couch, try and regain her equilibrium after dinner. And then she would go through to the kitchen and it would look like, a tornado had hit it. And so this way, she'd finished it. The meal was finished and the kitchen work in the day was done. And she had the sense of completion and it paid off hugely. And
those are the things that become habits
right.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Our insides and our outsides are in conversation all the time. And we get to direct the conversation. We can have our incompletions make us feel bad, or we can have them become something that we use to make us feel even better about things.
So,
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I was thinking about something earlier that's kind of germane to the topic, and that is, it made me think about it again when I thought about that habit, because here, when dinner is finished, the dishes get done, right? It's like, but that's just how I grew up. Like when the dryer is finished, the clothes get folded and put away. There's never a pile of clothes waiting in my house, but that's because that's the way my mother did it. And that's the way she taught me to do it. And that's the way I've always done it, right? So I don't have piles of dishes in the sink. I don't have piles of laundry waiting for anything ever. It just doesn't happen. But that doesn't mean I don't have other things that I
do. You do have half-made sets of earrings on your bench, right? So yeah, right, so we all have them, and you're right. But it's part of identity, right? Because our habits are the actions that follow belief, and our belief shapes identity. So if you have a habit of procrastinating and you take that on as identity, you're doing twice as much work every time you try and finish something.
Well, so this hack is about habits. So it's like if you're wanting to develop a new habit, and we've talked about this before, January 1st, everyone hits the gym, and suddenly they're going to go to the gym, 4 or 5 days a week for an hour and a half each time. It's just this big upheaval, and it's not able to be maintained usually because it's so much of a big change. So the hack is when you take on a new habit, it can only be 2 minutes.
Whoa.
Oh, nice.
Right. And I did this with yoga. I did it this year because I had done yoga for 25 years. I had completely gotten out of the habit of doing yoga at all. And I wanted to start again. And so I started with 2 sun salutations. That's it. It took 2 minutes, maybe 3. And then a few days later, I added another one. So it's like if you can work a new habit that way by going at it with just the first action you take for it has to be less than 2 minutes.
That's interesting because you're reminding me of something that Sean Aker, the positive psychology guy, talks about that he did. He wanted to play guitar more, but he found himself putting it off. And he realized that one of the reasons he was putting it off is because he stored the guitar in a case in the closet. And that there was this whole momentum he had to overcome to get up, get the guitar out of the closet, open up the guitar case, and then he could start playing. And it was just too much for his brain to handle. So he bought a guitar stand and he put it next to his chair in his living room and put the guitar there. And so now the next time he thought about playing guitar, it was right there. So he picked it up and started playing.
And see, so he set it up to be for his outsides to reflect somebody who plays guitar regularly.
Right.
That's what he did. And so, and it's like, you know, if you were on, in the front row of a theater and the curtains went up and you saw a living room with a guitar on a stand, you would know the person who lives there plays guitar.
That's true.
If you had that same thing and the guitar was in a cupboard, in a sort of in a closet, in a case, you as the audience wouldn't read that immediately. So you keep seeing the environment of somebody who plays the guitar. It's going to be somebody who plays guitar.
Now, see, that's why I have my jewelry making stuff in a space where I can walk up and, like I did today, I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I walked up and I sat down and I was able to work. But if all of my jewelry stuff, all my jewelry making supplies and beads and tools were in a box in a closet, I would never do it. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't sew. My mother was a tailor. And I made my own clothes when I was 11 or 12. I can sew anything. Wow. She taught me. And when I have a sewing room and then my sewing machine's out and I can just walk up and work on a project, then I sew. But the way it is now is I would have to get my sewing machine out, drag it into the kitchen, set it up on the dining room table, get all the fabric out, all the stuff out. By the time I do that, I'm like,
time for a break.
I don't do this anymore, right? So it's like, it never gets done because environment trumps intention. So no matter how strong my intention is, if I'm not set up in my environment to support that intention, it usually just doesn't happen. But like the guitar sitting in the stand, now when he sits down in his chair, all he has to do is reach over and pick up the guitar. And Jackie, that's brilliant. That is so true. It's like when we look around, we should be able to tell, right?
Yes. And this is what I do is that I start people putting the people they want to be into their environment. So they imprint their future selves. It's set design for acting as if, right? So you put in your future self into your environment. So, you know, is it somebody that, plans a menu? Then you say, okay, so on Monday night, we're going to eat this. And then we put the menu on the fridge door and we can see it. And we don't just put it in our phone, for example. You know, it's such an interesting thing to play with, the insides and the outsides. And procrastination, another thing, one of the things I'm playing with is having an appointment with finishing stuff I'm going to be sharing this with my group, so you guys hear it first. But I've actually started doing a half hour twice a week where I finish stuff. And that's all it says on my calendar is finish stuff.
I love this.
And then what I have, interestingly, is where it says finish stuff, and then, you know, on your calendar you can put details for what. In there I keep a running list of the things I need to finish. And so it calls up, I can check that little thing and it's going, oh yeah, I need to send so-and-so the check. I need to RSVP to that invitation. I need to book. And that's it. Half an hour, twice a week, finish stuff. The freedom it's given me is enormous.
I believe it. Well, there's also a ripple effect to this stuff, isn't there? Because, I mean, that's what I've been finding. I mentioned what I was doing with paying off the credit cards and getting excited and so forth. And when a bill comes in, I can hardly wait to pay the darn thing. Well, the same thing is actually happening with the billing and the payroll of the business. Normally the way it works, the crews go out in the morning and into the early afternoon. They have an app they clock in and clock out of. They also leave notes about what happened on the job and so forth. And then I go through and review that and do billing for what happened that day and do the scheduling for the next day and so on and so forth. So, but that all usually happens the following day because it's like a delay that goes on there. But today, just before I did the show here, before I came out to the show to join you guys, I had like 30 minutes, and they were all done for the day because they got done a little bit early because it was very hot today, so I had to send them home early. So they were done about 11 o'clock this morning. And I'm realizing, I could go do that now. So I actually started doing all of that stuff. I got it done before we did the show.
Oh, wow.
Tomorrow's work is done.
And that is such a thrill. You can get addicted to that thrill.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm worried about, I want to make sure that I don't encourage them to keep finishing early so that I can keep doing this. I want them to actually have full days. But other than that,
Yeah.
So Jack, I have a question for you. How can this benefit someone who doesn't find themselves procrastinating? Like, I don't, this is interesting. Jackie.
Well, I'd like to meet them first of all.
From the human design standpoint, there's a gate that is someone that finishes, and there's a gate that a starter type of person, and they always say, don't ever put someone that's just a starter into project management, because you need the person that knows how to get things finished in that position. Well, I have both of those gates active in my chart.
Wow.
And I don't have a lot of unfinished things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't tell you that everything is finished. Like I said, I have 4 projects now, and they're all sort of art projects that I'm working on, right? So they're not really something that I have been pushing aside and avoiding forever. They're just things that are in the process, right? They're works in process.
That's different.
Okay. So, but still, it's still easy to kind of let a work in progress, or like maybe even a book that you're halfway reading, you haven't left it for months, but you'd like to finish it sooner. And it's like, what are some ideas to help people finish things in a more timely manner, even if it's not something they're avoiding? I like your idea of scheduling it, right?
The scheduling of something, of finishing things, giving yourself time devoted to finishing things. And that can be anything, right? I mean, it really can be anything, including an art project or finishing a chapter on a book or something, and each of us is so different that I think we have to focus on who we'll be when we're done. That's always my thing, because it's like, who I'll be when I'm done reading this book is, I will feel I'll be able to write that review I've been paid for, or whatever it is I'm going to, or I may look at that and go, who I'll be when I'm done. Okay, never mind.
Right? Maybe I don't want to finish it.
And then you'll just go, I'm going to finish where I am. I'm going to finish this piece right here. And I think a lot of the time with procrastination, we don't investigate why we've lost interest. It's one thing to know that we hate doing something, and so we keep putting it off. So in that case, you got to kind of just untangle why you keep putting it off. But if the reason you keep putting it off is because you really don't care, then you have to give yourself permission to stop where you are. And we have so much programming about finishing things. I mean, this is ironic, but we have a lot of programming about don't start it if you're not meaning to finish. Why would you stop reading a book halfway through? Well, because I got what I came for. I'm not interested anymore. There's a lot of things that we can say, I'm done for now.
I remember somebody I can't remember the place, but they said that they one day just gave themselves permission, and it was like, maybe it was like 50 pages or something. Said, if I am not completely into a book by the time I've gotten 50 pages, I'm done.
And you can do that.
There was an argument about it. People were like, no, you have to finish it. I was like, yeah, why, that's the kind of the other side of the coin, right? Is that we're sovereign beings. And if there's something that we've started that we don't feel necessary to finish or that it's not benefiting us in any way to spend another 3 hours in a book that we're already not really crazy about. Why do we do it? Right?
And you see, but then there's also this thing that we'll go towards pleasure rather than, and try and avoid pain, right? So you take doing taxes, for example. Nobody really, okay, some people may like to do that, but
the person getting paid for doing taxes.
The person who's procrastinating on their taxes probably doesn't want to, right? But then that's when you look at, am I prepared to go through being the person who's not happy doing their taxes to get to the person who can say, I've done my taxes. Like you, Walt, you had to get to being the person who was paying off debt.
Right.
All that, whatever those things, the money management and the choosing not to buy things or whatever those things are, that discomfort that goes to become Walt who has no debt, right? So you know what that is. And so it's the same kind of thing. Exercise is another thing. There's a meme of a vulture walking along a beach and it's like, here's me doing my stupid walk because my stupid doctor said I have to walk the stupid body and blah, blah, blah. You can just see how irritated he is. And it's just like, we can go on a walk like that. Yeah. Our body doesn't actually care a lot. It really just wants you to walk. But it would be better if we felt better about it. We can do a lot of things, just doing them. But if we keep our mind and focus on who we'll be when we're done, then it lifts us. It moves us forward. It pulls us forward instead of us having to push ourselves,
That's the inspiration. That's the difference between inspiration and motivation, right? Motivation is that vulture on the beach with the doctor's voice in its head kicking him from behind that if you don't start doing this, you're going to have a heart attack or whatever.
Yes.
Inspiration is looking forward to who we will become or to what we will create. And that is, that inspiration pulls us forward. So
I will tweak that a little bit because I think inspiration comes from inside. And if that's missing, lean on aspiration. You want to be that version of you. You want to know what life's like as somebody who I'm working on Couch to 5K. I want to know what it's like to be someone who can run 5K. My earlier self, like all 57 years of them, would never have said I would run 5K. So I'm out to prove her wrong. Just experience and see what it's like. So I'm aspirational. It's not inspirational. I'm not feeling like
not yet.
It's not this kind of motion where I'm moving towards it. I feel like I'm being lured towards a version of me that's going, hello, over here, life's really good.
I'll second that because when I think about what I was doing with getting off the debt, getting rid of the debt and paying it off, simultaneous to that, it's interesting you mentioned taxes. Simultaneous to that, during that last couple of years, I was doing the taxes a lot faster. Mm-hmm. I think the two were connected.
I would, without a doubt, absolutely.
Yes. Just because I was focusing on the one in a way that was more motivational and felt better and felt like I was actually making progress, just made it easier to do the taxes too. Whereas in the past, it was exactly the opposite.
Well, and they're both components of relationship with money, right? So your relationship with money was just getting healthier.
And your identity, that this is a man who handles his money, handles his money this way, in this particular way, right? And it's like when as a family we went vegan. Suddenly we were a family that didn't buy meat, and that was so weird because there was a whole section of the grocery store that we sort of walked through out of habit and went, hey, we don't eat anything in here anymore. And we sort of went around the other way. So there are identity pieces. So my suggestion to anybody who struggles with procrastination, and I put that in inverted commas only because it's something we tell ourselves all the time. Mm-hmm. You can say, my procrastination could be a gift. How may it be a gift? Well, I can feel when it's not the right timing for something. So that's the one side. But then if I was somebody who didn't procrastinate, what would that look like? What could I do now as somebody who doesn't procrastinate much? And then you could explore what that version of you might be and how would that feel. Mm-hmm. So, if you put off, I don't know, whatever it is, that thing that you keep putting off, explore who you'd be when it was done. And is it worth going through the discomfort to get to done? Because often that will be the case. And it helps.
That's the key thing there. I want to touch on that word right there, discomfort. I think it's a key thing that we need to kind of at least mention here, because there's a tremendous discomfort in what I'll call negative procrastination. Procrastination that just kind of makes you feel, ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very uncomfortable, and I don't think we actually take it into account, do we?
No.
When we don't figure, oh, well, if I procrastinate, at least I don't have to deal with it right now, but I will feel, well, we don't think of it that way.
No, we don't. Yeah. And so that's the key. I teach in my class the energetic cost of procrastination and incompletions, it's like it's death by 1,000 cuts, but you are dying. Your attention is being held more and more and more by these things, and you're becoming more and more, you're believing that you are somebody who does this. And that's also not happy making, right? When somebody says, I'm a procrastinator, they never say it boldly and proudly. Mm-hmm. They never go, hey, I'm a procrastinator, right? No, we don't do that. We go, yeah, I'm a procrastinator.
Well, Jackie, you said something at the beginning of the show today that I want to make sure we touch on, because I think it's important. And the more I've thought about it, and you've added some other things, you and Walt both, and that is that about natural rhythms, right? You were talking about, at the onset of the industrial age, how suddenly people worked 9 to 5, and we modeled our schools after the same pattern. Mm-hmm. And I homeschooled my kids from the time one was in 4th and one was in 6th, all the way up until they were halfway through high school. And I did that for one main reason. They were both gifted in art and music, and you can't make art in 45 minutes. Mm. And I wanted them to have the space where if they were in the middle of making art or making music or reading or actually doing anything, what I did to teach them geometry and medieval history at the same time is we built a scale model of a castle in the living room. And that covered math and history and geometry and all kinds of things, right? Art. And there is an idea about, it's called, you can Google this and the article will come up. It's been read millions of times probably, but it's the difference between maker's time and manager's time. Mm-hmm. So when you call to make a doctor appointment and they say, well, we can get you in at 11 or 12 or 1 or right, that's manager's time. Everything mm-hmm. happens like every half hour or every 15 minutes or every hour. And a lot of us who are coaches, or healers, or we schedule appointments for things. Everything is by the hour, right? I can see you at 2, I can see you at 3. But if you're an artist or a creator or a writer or anybody that's making something, Walt, making software, making any kind of, right? You don't do that I'm going to do that tomorrow from 2 to 2:30. No, you need big blocks of time. And that's what's called maker's time. So it hits me in this discussion that sometimes we think we're procrastinating, but what it really is that knowing in us that may be subconscious knows that we can't do that in the hour that we have, that we need 3 hours. We need a block of time to do that thing. I'm thinking about it personally because so many of my things are art projects, right? Mm-hmm. And even though I have a client at 2 and I'm finished at 3 and then I don't have anything until 4, I walk right by it. It's not going to happen. It's not mm-hmm. going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I know there are people that would differ with me that say, I know one woman that's written 17 books and she says, I wrote it 15 minutes at a time. Every day I devoted 15 minutes. And that's an amazing thing if you can do that.
Oh, yeah.
But some of us have a natural rhythm where we need more time. And so when you were talking, Jackie, about intuitive sense of timing, right? Part of that is that it's knowing that maybe you need more. And so maybe the fix there is to consider that perspective and find some blocks of time where you can do those things.
I think it comes down to, at the end of the day, we have to honor ourselves. We have to undo the societal programming that says we have to show up this way, or we have to, this is how productivity looks. And we have to, this is how things are done. We talked about laundry piles. My son bought 2 laundry baskets. He does 1 load of washing a week because he's a single guy, but he folds everything up and he leaves it in the washing basket, and he dresses out of that basket and he puts the stuff into the other basket. Nothing ever goes into his closet. He never hangs anything up. He says, why would I? He says, I just wear things as they come through the basket, and I put them in the other basket, and then I take them out the dryer and I put them back in the new basket.
That's a system. It works for him.
It's brilliant, right? And so he said, because I kept procrastinating on laundry. Now he's got this little basket system. He doesn't. And that honors him. It makes his mother come out in hives, but he's not. But that's me, right? So
well, presumably there's also an ironing step someplace in there for some of those clothes. I mean, I would think,
Yeah, I don't know. It's such an interesting thing that we get to choose in an era where we have more choice than ever. We really do. We still take on the programming and we don't question when it doesn't work for us. So if you're procrastinating on something in particular, don't beat yourself up, but get curious about who you'd be if you decided never to finish that thing, who you'd be if you decided to finish it, and who you'd have to be in between of either of those.
Now, there's something I've actually been procrastinating on, so I got to actually address that one right now, because I have been procrastinating on saying hello to people who are saying hello in the audience. So, Diana, I want to say hello to you. Kimberly, I want to say hello to you. And Kimberly actually said something that I want us to address. She said, I have always felt this is my biggest flaw. So I'm curious, what do you guys have to say to Kimberly about that?
It's not a flaw, first of all.
It's not a flaw. No, you have a different setting, and you can, if you'll find a way to honor that, you will not have to ever worry about it again. But it's a case of, if you see it as a flaw and keep trying to fix it, you're undoing the thing. It's not that you have to fix that flaw. It's that you have to become more you. That would be my thing. I would be all about working on, firstly, what it is that you're procrastinating on, and seeing if that actually supports and serves you. And then the other thing is that maybe we can find ways that work in how you work, like my son with his laundry baskets, that procrastination isn't something that comes up because things just get done. That's who you are. Not how you are, but who you are. It's a cool thing.
Yeah, calling it a flaw is just a judgment, right? It's not, if we move back and look at things from the standpoint of observing them, like, I didn't do the dishes tonight, and tomorrow morning they're still there, right? That's just an observation. Mm-hmm. When they say, oh, I'm flawed, right? I have a problem. There's something wrong with me. That's when we get into trouble, because we start making judgments, and remember that judgments always affect our energy level. So curiosity, like Jackie just said, curiosity is like a superpower. Mm-hmm. You can get curious about it and stop the judging. And I always say, that sound that Yoda makes, that sound, you can't make that sound and have judgment or worry at the same time, because curiosity doesn't operate that way. Curiosity operates in a different realm. So thinking about it that way is useful. Where did Walt go?
I don't know. He suddenly maybe he decided he had to go and finish something. And also, I want to say, when you say something's a flaw, and if there's a sigh attached, it's often a lie. When you go, that's a flaw, right? It's not. That is society saying that you should be a certain way when you're a different way. And if you get to explore your you-ness and the way that you thrive, those things don't happen. Your flaws can become fabulous. The very thing that people admire about you.
that's the thing, is that getting curious allows us to see, is this just a society thing that, maybe I was brought up this way, or maybe I was, I have this expectation that's outside of me, like everybody else expects me to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it something I really want to do and wish that I was the person that did this a certain way?
Yeah.
That's an easy one, because that's easy to fix. If that's where we just step into that identity and be that person.
And if there's something, and if there's something that you really don't feel like doing often, and you keep putting it off, then things like Focus Mate or finding a buddy to do it with you, finishing stuff, showing up with somebody else who wants to. My mum, for the longest time, used to have a girlfriend date with her best friend, and together they would clean the one person's house. And then they would go over 2 days later, and together they would clean the other person's house. And they would chat and drink wine and everything. And that was because at the time, neither of them had the capacity to do it on their own. And so doing it with a friend meant that they got it. And so this is how if you get creative, get curious and get creative and not see it as a flaw, because that closes down your creativity, that closes down your lens and the love that the love that you can see yourself through. That allows you to explore ways that procrastination is your intuitive timing, and you can find ways to honor it or support it or get help with it, either way.
And having an accountability partner, that's probably the main reason I ever hire coaches for myself. It's the reason some people hire me or hire Jackie, but to hold you accountable. Just say, I need a partner. Can I check in with you every Wednesday to make sure I'm on track, and just get somebody that will help you stay accountable.
We seem to have lost everybody.
Oops. I don't know what's happening. But we made it almost to the end without craziness, right?
I had a brownout here. That's what happened. I lost power for just a split second and just knocked everything off. So, yes. And this happened yesterday, too. This is like 2 days in a row. Yeah, there's some interesting energy that's been going on here on the show. Here comes Jackie.
There we go. I got thrown off, too.
Crazy. This is 2 days in a row. I was just telling Cindy, we had the same thing happen yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How odd.
Very, very strange.
Yes.
Energy on this show just goes through the roof, and then God only knows what's going to happen with it after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a very nuanced conversation. And that was the piece that I wanted to end with. Don't procrastinate. If you have a label of procrastinator, it taps into just one thing that is so blinkered by the industrial complex, right? And the way society works. And it takes out so many nuances of identity, whether you need a maker's schedule, whether you need a friend to help you do things, whether you need to just decide if you want to be somebody who does that. There's so many nuances. And the first thing we have to do is get compassionate and curious and not see it as a flaw.
That's really important too. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm here all
week. Well, you did a beautiful job with that. I don't think anybody can top it. I love the idea, though, of not treating it as a flaw. There's so many things that we beat ourselves up about. So many things. And, this is a great example because it's one thing that is usually pretty small. It can lead to big stuff, but it's usually pretty small, which shows all the different ways that we're beating ourselves up on really, really small stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And how often are we doing that throughout our days? How often are we just beating ourselves over the head, punching ourselves in the stomach, just giving ourselves a hard time?
There was that quote that said, if you judged a fish by whether it could climb a tree, you wouldn't think it was worthwhile, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I know I keep harping on the industrial complex, but society, the way we have organized society, has taken a lot of individual rhythm and individual nuance and individual skills, natural tendencies, taken them out of the equation. Some are really celebrated, and others are deemed to be a flaw. And we're out to undo that and untangle it all.
which is a very good thing. So thank you for leading us down that direction. That's wonderful.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Thanks for giving us, we got the advanced copy of what you're doing with your group.
I know.
I feel special.
You are special. Yeah, absolutely. It's so cool. And it's, it's an important thing that doesn't get talked about enough.
No doubt about that. Well, I'm glad you ladies came up with this topic. I'm glad that we stopped putting off actually doing the topic.
And I'm glad there's a post-it note that says, put a bio about Jackie on the website.
Jackie obviously belongs in the intro. I mean, this is patently obvious to everybody except for me lately because I've been procrastinating it. So, okay.
Wow. Yes, you've probably been distracted as well.
Well, I'm very distracted. The note says, make promo with Jackie in big black letters. I can't miss it. It's impossible.
I am so thrilled.
Right.
The line for autographs is on the right-hand side. So
sounds good to me. Hey, I won't argue with that.
I'm kidding. Thank you so much. It's always so good to talk to you.
Oh, it's wonderful. We're so glad that you joined the show. And Cindy, as usual, it's marvelous to talk with you. And I'm just hoping that neither of you went through the same kind of thing that I went through here about 5 minutes ago, losing power. We don't need that. So keep the power, ladies. Keep the power.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So thank you very much, guys. Thank you especially to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.